Blue Economy Academy, prosper by water.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Code Blue. Code Blue is our monthly blue economy sector pulse check. And we started Code Blue last month. This is the second edition. My name is Ubong Esen. I'm the founder of the Blue Economy Academy. Blue Academy was started last year as an initiative to encourage greater engagement, wider participation on matters related to the blue economy. I had a job in NIMASA for 3 years. And one of the key takeaways during my stint at NIMASA was that Nigeria is struggling collectively with the challenge of ocean blindness or sea blindness. And that while those involved in policy are actively doing what they need to do and are doing their best, the collective, the rest of us that constitute the major bulk of Nigerians, must awaken ourselves to the reality that we are a maritime state and that the ocean is a very significant portion of it. And these things have contributed in inspiring me towards what we are currently doing and what the blue economy is about. So I want to welcome you to this second edition of the program and to say to you that as we commence, one of the things I'll be doing quickly is to walk us through documentation from the previous meeting, which was held last month, and some of the high points from that conversation. And then I'll introduce a couple of persons here who would lead some of the conversations. One of them is Professor Pat Utomi. I just sent in a message and I think he's about to join us. Mr. Temiso Omashaya is here, and a couple of other individuals. But what is most important is that this is a marketplace of ideas, of interest, of conversations, of awakenings. The blue economy is not a regulatory agency of government, is not a participant in government-related issues. We are not in contestation with various other players. We are just a convening space to help galvanize interests, help galvanize passion, help galvanize participation, so that we can realize that in the final analysis, if Nigeria is to prosper, we will actually prosper by our waters, through our waters. Even the oil that has kept us over the past 6 decades, without our waters, we would have had quite a lot of limitations in actualizing or realizing the potential that oil has managed to give to us. So now is the time for us to shift our attention collectively as a people towards the oceans, towards our waters, because with over 853 kilometers of coastline from Lagos to Cross River State, and with over 20 states internally linked through our waterways, why aren't we sensitized sufficiently to participate, to ask questions, to engage on matters concerning this blue economy? That is what this question is about. And why are so many sectors feeling so detached, so alienated from this realization? That is what the Blue Economy Academy is established to do, to address the major challenge of sea blindness and encourage increased participation in our ocean-related and other blue-related opportunities. That is what the Blue Economy is about. I mean, the Blue Economy Academy set up to do. And it will also interest you to know that one of the things we've also done, because we believe very strongly in this, apart from education, enlightenment, advocacy, we're also looking brokering connection, interactions, participation, bringing stakeholders together, bringing individuals, experts from across sectors together. And that's why I'm very pleased that some of our friends internationally have also joined us today to say, look, how can we get involved a lot more? Some months ago, I had a conversation with some real estate professionals here at the School of Eloquence, where I do most of my work. And I began to share some of my experiences with them. And I talked about the concept of how real estate has significant connections to the waters. And they were quite surprised. And before I knew it, 2 weeks later, they were inviting me to come and speak at their annual general meeting. That's the group known as FIAPSI, to help them understand the relevance and the connection of the blue economy to the real estate business. And not only in real estate, a variety of sectors can find their nexus in our waters. Manpower development is there. Security, education is there. Food security is there. Technology is there. Small businesses can play in this sector. So I want you to see us at the blue economy as a voice crying out in the middle of, I wouldn't want to say in the middle of the wilderness, but crying out in the middle of the oceans, in the water, saying, Nigeria, wake up. Nigeria, wake up. Nigerians, wake up and understand that perhaps the most renewable path to sustained prosperity will come through our waters. We have seen what oil is doing. Oil is a wasting asset. The economists are telling that to us. Even the professionals in that sector, the explorers, the engineers are telling us. It leaves so much bad residue on the environment, but not the waters. So for us, at the Blue Economy Academy, we want to encourage a collective awakening. Why should we see riverine people as the abandoned ones? Many times we don't even want to mention the word riverine coastal communities. We classify them as being out there, separated, isolated. Whereas that's where the wealth is. That's where the wealth comes from. How do we integrate our thinking better so that we truly appreciate our coastal status as a nation? That is what these monthly conversations are designed to drive. And then whatever emanates from these monthly virtual conversations makes its way in policy language to the policymakers. Because sea blindness is a very serious problem. And sea blindness is not just limited to the average Nigerian. Even at the policy level, a lot of people making our laws today are sea blind. But they are making laws with regards to the maritime industry. They are making laws with regards to the blue economy. Most of them don't yet understand the ramifications in terms of sustainability, in terms of livelihoods, the impact on people's lives and livelihoods, in terms of the economic potential, employment, jobs that can be created, which is what the blue economy is about. So we want to simplify this conversation, mainstream it, and awaken this nation to its blue potential, to its blue assets, and say to Nigeria, it is time to look to the oceans. It is time to tap into the waters. responsibly, sustainably, and of course, engender prosperity through our waters. So that is what this is about. And one of the things I want to quickly go through is to do a quick readout from our first conversation held last month. And thereafter, we'll open up the floor. Our main speaker for today is going to be Professor Pat Utomi. We'll have 15 minutes to reflect on the state of play in the blue economy. And then we can begin to have conversations and hear various contributions to drive the participation for this month's Code Blue. And I'm also happy to announce, even though I cannot mention the name of the state entity, because in this space, we are engaging both state and non-state actors. It's a blue square. And yesterday, I received a very encouraging phone call from one of the top institutions and agencies of government driving the blue economy and blue and marine economy, inviting us for a proper engagement. We've gone through the communique from just the first edition of the meeting, and there is some level of excitement, and they're like, okay, so what do we do? What would you want us to do? So when the citizens take part more robustly, because what we did was to send that communique based on the conversations, based on the inputs to all of the authorities driving policy, making decisions on the blue economy. We need to get them to listen, to participate, and to help make those decisions that can make the blue economy an all-inclusive economy, because the sea affects us all. The sea affects us all. And the blue economy has got to be a collective one. It's our collective destiny. So exercise some patience with me while I run through what I call a report on Code Blue 1. I'm going to share my screen and we can go through it together. Let me just quickly share my screen with you. This is the report on Code Blue 1.0, our inaugural edition. It was held on July 29th. Tuesday, July 29, 2025. Nigeria's monthly ocean intelligence brief convened by the Blue Economy Academy, and the event served as an urgent call to awaken national consciousness on Nigeria's 10-year marine and blue economy policy. And the theme was Blueprint to Reality, Nigeria's 10-year marine and blue economy policy, unpacking the blueprint for action. Now, participants included policymakers, maritime agencies, coastal state officials, industry leaders, the academia, and civil society. So key observations and insights. The first, again, was what I had alluded to earlier on, sea blindness, where I emphasized that the blue economy is everyone's concern and that the sea affects us all. The second point, in terms of insight, was the reference to strategy and KPIs by Mr. Temisa Omasheye, former DG of NIMASA, who warned that without strategy and measurable KPIs, the policy risks remaining a document only. We've known from experience how that has been with us as a nation over time. So many policies, but we don't get to convert them to clear strategy and measurable KPIs. And to quote him, he said, once you have approved a policy like this, you must have a strategy. And on the back of that strategy, you must have KPIs. I think I read something in the media a few days ago that the ministry has started doing something along that line, engaging with certain departments within the ministry to begin actualization. There was the issue of infrastructure caution, which came from Vivian Chimezia Zubike, Vivian is the DG of the Chamber of Shipping in Nigeria, where she talked about, where she criticized or critiqued, I beg your pardon, the drive to build ports everywhere, warning of projects that amount to greenwashing without real impact. That was also in the communique that's being looked at. Then Violet Olaito Williams touched on grassroots participation and human capital, catching them young. That's part of ocean literacy, and we're working on developing an ocean literacy program that can cascade ocean awareness further down to the younger generation to increase people's sensibilities and sensitivities towards the oceans. Seafarers' welfare also was talked about. Then they also had a conversation around inland waterways as being very essential and the need to revive a lot of activities in that space so that we can turn maritime waste into wealth. And matters such as ship recycling and wreck removal also came up. Now, what were the resolutions that we adopted? One, implementation of the roadmap based on concrete strategy and KPIs. Two, collaboration and not conflict. I think this was a very important point that came up. The regulators and industry must partner and not act as adversaries. And our regulators must become more open, must have a disposition that encourages, not see non-regulators as enemies or as rivals. And if there's anything that I've learned in my 3 years working in the maritime industry, it is this. No major accomplishment ever took place without collaboration. No major accomplishment that I witnessed in those 3 years during my time in NIMASA ever took place without collaboration. And a very interesting example was the reduction in piracy in our waters, which continues to serve as a record long after the tenure of Dr. Bashir Jamo as the DG. It was because industry and navies collaborated. It took a lot of doing, but that collaboration resulted in tremendous results. Now, imagine that we could take that into other areas, other more economic-centric areas, in terms of shipping, in terms of fishing, in terms of education, capacity building. That would make it more of a difference. So it was one of the key things that came up, that, look, collaboration and not conflict. And I hope that some of our state actors on this call will understand that much more and try to make it more of culture. That yes, you're the regulators, you're the policymakers and drivers. I've had the privilege of being on that side as well. But beyond that, you must have an all-embracing approach and attitude towards ensuring that we tap into the best that we have, because the seas are way, way too massive. The entire expanse of what the ocean by its nature represents does call naturally for collaboration and not conflict. Imagine if there was always conflict at sea. We would probably be having shipwrecks every day, endlessly. So that needs to improve. And then human capital development, mainstream maritime education at all levels. And of course, support seafarer certification, which is very important. Strategic infrastructure focus, optimizing existing ports and developing inland waterway corridors. And then this as an accountability platform that Code Blue will reconvene monthly, which is what we're doing now as a next step, as a voluntary mirror to track progress. And we concluded that event by the statement which I made, that let this be the start of a national awakening where we no longer ignore the ocean, but integrate it into our economy, education, and everyday life. So these represent, in summary, most of what we did last month. So with this done, I will come back and open the floor for comments. Just briefly, for those who might have one or two comments, if you're in that meeting, we can just take one or two quickly and then move on to getting Professor Otomi to address us and get the conversation going.
And we're hearing of other refineries coming up of 500,000 barrels, and then other ones are coming up. It definitely means that there's going to be an overcapacity of petroleum products for domestic consumption. Okay? It goes on to say, therefore, that there's going to be need for, which means that majority of the additional production, which is not for the domestic market, has to be exported. And we had our first opportunity under the Petroleum Act or with NNPC, where we could have quite easily taken control of our shipment of our petroleum products, and we never did. And God is basically, in his infinite wisdom, has given us a second chance. And that second chance basically has more to do with the fact that we have to find a way to develop it. Now, where am I going with this? One of the key aspects of Nigerian economy is human capital. We have a very youthful population. And in having that youthful population who speaks good English, therefore, there is need for us to begin to develop serious manpower. It's supposed to be a serious manpower development in the area of marine and shipping, because if we do not develop that manpower starting now over the next 10 years, we would just be sitting down here and we'll be colonized in our own shipping industry. And what I mean serious manpower, and I'm sorry to say this, that unfortunately our administrators or regulators are not looking at the possibility of manpower development. Yes, we have a lot of training. We have Maritime Academy on, but the question I need to ask, are we on the whitelist? If we train our manpower and develop our manpower today, are they able to go on board vessels in line with international set standards? And the bottom line is that the certification, to the best of my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected, which are issued here, except for the one that comes out of the Maritime Academy or Regional Maritime Academy or University in Accra, it's not recognized internationally. And it is not a question of individual training academies to go and get this. It is for the nation to get those individual study centers for the nation to be accredited first, and then basically begin to accredit those individual learning centers. And we have sufficient universities, and we have sufficient people in the coastal states who are willing to learn and understand how this works. So my own penny contribution is basically, we need to begin to look. I mean, and there comes the opportunities for our youths, especially in the coastal areas, because the impact of these guys working would also reduce the insecurity in those areas. I mean, I'm hearing the commendation now that, oh, the pipelines are now functioning 100%, Yeah, but, when the guy gets hungry again, they'll go back to, dig up those pipelines. So my own take on all of this is, how do we begin to develop the manpower and train our youths? Because we only talk simply about deep sea. We have 10,000 kilometers of inland waterways. We've not even started to hold it. And we had our first opportunity under the Petroleum Act or with NNPC, where we could have quite easily taken control of our shipment of our petroleum products, and we never did. And God is basically, in his infinite wisdom, has given us a second chance. And that second chance basically has more to do with the fact that we have to find a way to develop it. Now, where am I going with this? One of the key aspects of Nigerian economy is human capital. We have a very youthful population. And in having that youthful population who speaks good English, therefore, there is need for us to begin to develop serious manpower. It's supposed to be a serious manpower development in the area of marine shipping, because if we do not develop that manpower starting now over the next 10 years, we would just be sitting down here and we'll be colonized in our own shipping industry. And when I mean serious manpower, and I'm sorry to say this, that unfortunately our administrators or regulators are not looking at the possibility of manpower development. Yes, we have a lot of training. We have Maritime Academy on, but the question I need to ask, are we on the whitelist? If we train our manpower and develop our manpower today, are they able to go on board vessels in line with international set standards? And the bottom line is that the certification, to the best of my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected, which are issued here, except for the one that comes out of the Maritime Academy or Regional Maritime Academy or University in Accra, it's not recognized internationally. And it is not a question of individual training academies to go and get this. It is for the nation to get those individual study centers to be, for the nation to be accredited first, and then basically begin to accredit those individual learning centers. And we have sufficient universities, and we have sufficient people in the coastal states who are willing to learn and understand how this works. So my own penny contribution is basically, we need to begin to look. I mean, and there comes the opportunities for our youths, especially in the coastal areas, because the impact of these guys working would also reduce the insecurity in those areas. I mean, I'm hearing the commendation now that, oh, the pipelines are now functioning 100%, Yeah, but, when the guy gets hungry again, they'll go back to, dig up those pipelines. So my own take on all of this is, how do we begin to develop the manpower and train our youths? Because we only talk simply about deep sea. We have 10,000 kilometers of inland waterways. We've not even started talking about our solid mineral yet. How do we begin to move those solid mineral from the inland areas, especially down the River Niger, using the Barrow ports in Niger State and all the other little hinterland ports, and begin to utilize our inland waterways to begin to move cargoes to maybe where might be developed to become a solid mineral port going future. So these are the areas. I mean, I'm only just picking the ice now, but I can tell you that with the information I have right now, that the level of development coming up in not only the solid mineral area which Oko talks about dry cargo, but also in the oil and gas. I'm aware now that they've just designated the ports as an export port for LPFO export terminal, LPFO, NAFTA, and whatever in Delta State for NMDPRA. So which means already the issue of net exporting of petroleum products has begun, whether we like it or not. People are moving on. Okay, so, but my challenge is not about that. My challenge is, how do we begin to train the youths now to begin to appreciate? I mean, I had a very good conversation with Mrs. Williams, in the last conference we had with Lekki Deep Sea Port, where we talked about beginning to train these people to appreciate, especially our youths from the junior secondary up to secondary school, to appreciate the impact of water and the blue economy. We need to start somewhere, because we have some youth population. Many of them are not going there because we do not have that. So that is really my own little addition: human capital development. And really and truly, it has to come from government. It has to come from top to bottom. They have to get us certified and get us on the white list, and then therefore begin to certify learning academies. I remember in our time, we started to set up the Institute of Maritime Studies in different areas. And then we also tried to set up some other things to actually develop maritime training. So that is my own thinking. I believe very strongly that no matter how much we talk about the blue economy, if we don't begin to sensitize our youths and begin to get them more involved in the blue economy, we will not be. Look at the likes of Philippines, look at the likes of India, look at the likes of those countries who are providing manpower worldwide. China is stepping into the ring quite strongly. We should be there. We have the population, we have the
typical things that have to do with maritime and shipping. These are areas of knowledge, areas of learning, where we're going to have industry experts like you've seen Mr. Temiso Omashaye, who is one of our key industry fellows at the Blue Economy Academy, come in from time to time to teach, to share knowledge, to create awareness. We have what we call Blue Bounty, which deals with everything about food security in the blue economy. We have Blue Talent. That is where we emphasize the need for manpower development and human capacity building as well. So we have Blue Governance, where we talk about maritime security. So we've looked at the entire blue economy landscape, and we've actually broken everything down into 10 different areas. Blue Ventures, where you have people who can start up enterprises, small, medium scale enterprises can actually participate in the blue economy. Absolutely. Rather than most times people see the ocean as some big thing for big boys only and big men only, there is room, there is space for everyone to participate. So those are some of the things. That's why I wanted to highlight that bit on Blue Talent, where we're constantly working towards educating on the kind of skills necessary for the blue economy. Mr. Omashaye talked about our young ones, the younger generation. There's lots of opportunities there. Government is trying to create employment. Let's look to the seas. We'll be able to generate so much more employment from there. The Philippines alone provides what? According to statistics, 20 to 25% of global seafaring capacity. That is the Philippines alone. In Nigeria, what do we have? In terms of the overall 100%, what percentage have we produced, have we provided? And yet we have a population of what? Over 200 million. What are we doing? And 65% of that population are young people. And 8 states are littoral states facing the Atlantic. So if we connect these dots, which is what we're trying to do here through the Code Blue and the Blue Economy Academy, we should begin to get our heads thinking, our hearts reasoning collectively in this direction. So let me have Ajia Lamitumaka to come in. Ajia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, distinguished members that are here present, those present on the platform, my DG. It's always an honor, and I'm always excited when I see you, Mr. Omashaye. Mr. Ubong, I just want to congratulate you for taking the bull by the horns. The blue economy is wide enough. The ocean is deep enough. The sky is, it's an all comers. There's enough room for everybody, to key into it. A couple of years ago, a few of us retired NIMASA directors, we came together to form the Blue Economy Nigeria Resources with Dr. Omashaye, with some distinguished Nigerians as part of our company. And we looked at ourselves from the private sector. What our dream was to collaborate, with the public sector, collaborate with NIMASA, for instance. What they could not do, we could be like advocates, could do for them. But unfortunately, very unfortunately, some people did not understand us, and they went out of their way, to kill that initiative. But life is a continuum. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow. So we have resuscitated ourselves, and I'm happy with what you said about collaboration. We would be happy to collaborate with you because you have done a lot of work, you know, which I think will be good for the country, that experts, come together and help the government. This is a private sector led initiative that, the government itself can key into to get the benefit of what we can offer. A couple of about a month ago, the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy launched their policy document. That document is something that we should all have. It is, I think, it is well intentioned. It is all encompassing. It is detailed. If the government has the willpower, to see it through, I think it might be the beginning of our understanding what the blue economy is all about. Let me stop here and assume that my point have been understood. Thank you very much.
All right, Ajia, thank you very much for that intervention. Definitely, as you said, the sea is deep enough, and of course, the sky is wide enough. And there is no way we can even begin to exhaust all of the possibilities. The more reason we must collaborate.
With the massa, for instance, what they could not do, we could like play like be like an like advocates, could do for them. But unfortunately, very unfortunately, some people did not understand us, and they went out of their way, to kill that initiative. But life is a continuum. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow. So we have resuscitated ourselves, and I'm happy with what you said about collaboration. We would be happy to collaborate with you because you have done a lot of work, which I think will be good for the country, that experts, come together and help the government. This is a private sector led initiative that, the government itself can key into to get the benefit of what we can offer. A couple of about a month ago, the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy launched their policy document. That document is something that we should all have. It is, I think, it is well intentioned. It is all encompassing. It is detailed. If the government has the willpower, to see it through, I think it might be the beginning of our understanding what the blue economy is all about. Let me stop here and assume that my point have been understood. Thank you very much.
All right, Ajia, thank you very much for that intervention. Definitely, as you said, the sea is deep enough, and of course, the sky is wide enough. And there is no way we can even begin to exhaust all of the possibilities. The more reason we must collaborate more than ever before. The biggest lesson I took away in maritime was that you can't achieve big things without collaboration. And you'll be amazed at how everyone has something meaningful to contribute. Everyone has something meaningful to contribute that can help address some of these major challenges. And for those of us who are new to the conversation about the blue economy, before I take George Wilcox, it's a very simple and straightforward concept. It's about our waters, pure and simple. Our waters around sustainable use. Our waters in terms of how it can sustain livelihood, in terms of how it can create employment and make life more worth living. That's just it. That's the World Bank's definition put in lay person's terms. And everything related to that. And when you talk about the oceans and the seas, especially with Nigeria's geography, other factors come in. You have to think about security, maritime security. Things like piracy that we've had to deal with in the past and that we've significantly brought under control. You have to talk about transportation. There was a time we kept wondering, why must we constantly put everything on the roads? Why can't we use our waters? Massive ships come into Lagos with cargo, and then we pound the entire road networks with these massive trailers, degrading the infrastructure faster than they ought to be, reducing their lifespan value. And the waters are there. From Apapa here down to Ikorodu, we can move things, we can move people. Then talk about going into Ogun State. These are conversations we should be having. Why can't we leave from Lagos and get to Warri by water and make it a 4-hour journey instead of driving 1 hour to the airport and then getting on the flight? You might even be delayed another 1 hour, and then before you know it, it's equally 4 hours of going through that stress. Why can't we? And then in terms of fishing, why are we still importing significant portions of the fish that we consume when we have waters to fish? So there are just so many things to look at. And the more reason we must collaborate across all these fields. So let me take George Wilcox.
Yes, good morning, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good morning, sir. Thank God for another edition of the Code Blue. I really appreciate you for convening this space for the likes of ocean blue enthusiasts to come in to give in their own portion of their cake. And I also want to appreciate our former DG, Omasei. We appreciate you all the way. Now, I really want to thank him for the subject which he raised concerning youth engagement, manpower development in the ocean blue. Before I will go further, I would like to just state out the words of the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, on UN community engagement, the UN community engagement guidelines on peace building and sustaining peace. It says that community engagement is a strategic process to directly involve local populations in all aspects of decision making and implementation to strengthen local capacities, community structures, and local ownership, as well as to improve transparency, accountability, and optimal resource allocations across diverse settings. Going by this, you see community engagement is very key when it comes to matters of the blue economy. I'm from Bayelsa State, the state that has the longest coastline, as I was being made to know. I will say this, that the oil and gas some time ago took our resources and explored it and exploited it and left us aside. And, you know, they kept our youths in a state of survival. And that survival mode was not the best. And as a result, it brought about militancy and unrest in the region, which by the grace of God, we are recovering from, but not fully. Now, the blue economy is the hint thing. And I want to say, before the advent of militancy, there has been sea piracy existing. And to me, I want each and every one of us to know that sea piracy, those committing the act, are not seeing it the way the Englishman put it, or the way you and I in the industry are seeing it. All they are seeing is they just go to the waters, commandeer a ship, and gain something for themselves, for their families to survive with. since the government has ignored their plights, as the case may be. So before you know, the government now comes up with certain rules and said, this is sea piracy and all of that. So in the nutshell is that those perpetrating the act of sea piracy are not seeing the language which the government stipulated it as what they are doing, as the case may be. Now, going deeper, I want us to come to the place of understanding from what I was able to know based on research, deep research, what law, the law we know, what the law is all about. Today, permit me to say that the law which you and I know as LAW is rather, yes, I wrote it somewhere. I say the law is an elemental order, is an acronym for land, air or atmosphere, and water. So I will say this. When the government, in as much as the government is now coming to the blue economy, if they come to the Niger Delta today to do with our waters, in other words, they are taking our part of the law from us. Coming to the lands as a result of creating seaports development and water view. They're taking our land, part of the law, elemental force of the law from us. And if they make use of this fundamental order of the law, which belongs to us, which God has given to us, and they do not include us in the scheme of things as inclusion or inclusivity is concerned, what they do to us invariably is to keep us in a state of lawlessness. They've taken our land, in other words, they've taken our water. And in the process of carrying out the operations, the air is also polluted. They've taken everything, so they kept us in a state of lawlessness. So before someone will say, you are lawless, to me, this is what the person is saying. You've taken the person's land, air, and water. And what do you expect the person to do? To remain? You just created, they made the person to be lawless. So invariably, you kept the person in a state of nowhere in the scheme of the law of order, or the fundamental or elemental order of the law. And I want to take us deeper into what the law means. As a spiritual, or I believe I'm a pastor by the grace of God in the calling, but I want to say something deeper about this. What is the significance of the land you see in that law format? Land means wisdom. That is why you and I, in our traditional values, will say the wisdom of our land. So when you take the man's land away from him, not incorporating him into it, you've turned him into a violent, foolish human being. Now, what is the air or atmosphere indicating? It means knowledge. In as much as we are making phone calls, this interaction we make on phone calls, it moves through the air, the atmosphere. You take the person's knowledge from the person. What is water? You and I know that when a man is thirsty, walking under the hot sun, and you are thirsty, you lose your understanding. When you drink water or pour water on you, you find out that your understanding is coming in. So when you take the person's water ways and not incorporating them, you've invariably taken the person's understanding away. So what do you have in totally? You have something like militancy. You have something like sea piracy. You have criminals. You have killers. And as a result, I think I will use Badagry as a case study. Now they've gone to Badagry. They want to make a seaport in Badagry. They've already taken some portion of the lands of the people. Say, no, don't trespass, no trespass zone or whatever. You took their land. Did you compensate them for that? You've not compensated them. I saw on the news recently that the NPA DG or director or head said that project is stalled for now. Okay, the project is stalled. What about the people? You took it away. And as the case may be, they have no access to farm their lands again. You kept them in a state of anticipation. Anticipating to when will something come up? You are just the fact remains that the government is invariably one of the resource persons behind insecurity in the scheme of things. I will say this before I drop. and I'll say it with my full chest. I intervened or advocated that the NIMASA should come and carry out their corporate social responsibility. Not only them, both the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. And NIMASA heeded to it through ADRO, and they are coming in. Now, what about the part of the Federal Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy? The last I spoke with the Director Maritime Safety Security, Babatunde Bombata. He invited me to Abuja from where I am in the Niger Delta. I traveled. Only to arrive there in the course of meeting with him, a woman that was once upon a time the Deputy Director on cabotage, Celia Ekanem, saw me, and the next thing she did, she went to Bombata, had a discussion with him, came to me and said, please, can we see you? Can I see you? Can I see you? In the nutshell, let me tell you what she did. She told me, I've seen the report, what the master wants to do for the South-South, not Bayelsa State, South-South, that as a result, we want our own CSR, you people to forgo our own CSR. I don't understand, as the case may be. In fact, if the right thing goes on,
Mr. Wilcox, I want you to wrap up so that we can have. I know Professor Tommy has joined us.
In other words, okay, thank you very much.
I see with Jumai Mohammed.
Thank you very much. In other words, I think I want to appreciate this protocol you just established right now that our guys already arrived to. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Wilcox. Jumai, I'm going to take you as well. So before I bring in Prof is already here. So let's hear your take.
Good morning, everyone. To be fast, my own contribution is
hold on, Jumai. Jumai, hold on a second. I think we missed this protocol. Actually, I'm holding the fort for Ismail Anemu. Ismail Anemu is the moderator of Code Blue. For some reason, he's been indisposed, so I've had to fit into that role as well to do this. And usually, you introduce yourself. You introduce yourself to the whole house. I know I have quite a number of the Massa people in the Massa guide here. That's my former constituency, still my constituency. So it would be nice to introduce yourself. Aja Lamitu Maka, that intervened earlier on, used to be Director of Public Relations and also Director of Special Duties at NIMASA. So,
my name is Jumai Maria Mohammed. I work with NIMASA Shipping Development as a promotion assistant director. My own contribution has to do with the fact that for us to get the blue economy to work, we have to bring the indigenous people from all angles where we have water, from Barrow Port to Kogi to Bayelsa, all where there's water. We have to get them involved. They have to know, educate them. They are the source. They are the ones that get this source of raw materials to us, but a lot of them don't know what is even happening. We have done a lot of paper presentation, a lot of talking. Now we have to get to roll the ball, as in hit the ball rolling with facing the reality and get the work doing. Get back to these people. We have to form groups within these local communities. Mrs. Olaitan Williams is doing a very great job. I've seen her videos, how she has gone from Badagry to Ekwe. She's bringing these people together. If other states can do the same, I'm telling you, before we know it, the blue economy is up there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Aja Jumai. And I'm glad coming from a state actor, because you work in NIMASA. And this is the kind of attitude you want to see more of. If others can get involved, that's fine. But we also expect that as others get involved, when they visit your offices, whether it's at NIMASA, MPA, the ministry, and wherever, there should be a welcoming attitude that can be put into practical operation. It's very important. This call is crucial. We found, and we've seen many instances in the past where the government or state actors will announce our doors are open, we will support you. And when people come in, when people show up, the experience is different. Something has to change at that level. Now, there are agencies that are doing very well. They respond, they take collaborations, opportunities to collaborate to that next level and support private players who truly want to make a difference. And let me also state this, that not everybody, every private player is essentially interested in some form of sponsorship or some form of economic patronage. No, there are just players who just want to make a contribution, who just need a policy intervention, a decision to be made to open up the space so that they can play in that space, make their participation more meaningful, and thereby contributing. So we have to be much more welcoming in practice. The language is fine, the language is good, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate that you see what a difference private players can make when they get involved. And that is the collaboration, more of the collaboration that we want to see. And for those of us in the private sector, let's understand that it's not always about engaging government for patronage. It's not that any proposal that we have, any idea that we have must lead to some form of financial support or investment or sponsorship or whatever. Yes, government does control significant resources. It's both ways. It's both ways. That understanding must come from both ways. But whatever the case, collaboration is so important. Professor Patutomi is already here. Prof, I'll crave your indulgence. Give me 1 minute. I have to take Sam Megwa. Sam is, Sam, well, I'll allow you to introduce yourself. Sam, I'll give you 2 minutes or maybe a bit more than that before we have Professor Tommy coming. Sam, the floor
thank you very much, Uba. Good to see you, and thank you for this great initiative. Good morning to everybody. My name is Sam Megwa. I'm dialing in from the UK, where I am currently based, and I work for various organizations. But the main reason why I'm with you today is because I'm currently supporting the Lloyd's Register Foundation, which is a global foundation based here in the UK, in developing partnerships across Africa. Some of you who are following events in the region, you would note that Lloyd's Register Foundation currently established some what they call the Ocean Stewardship Centers in Kenya and Ghana. And they are working in partnership with other countries as well to see how they can build a better blue economy, particularly focused on safety and development of workforce. So on that note, well, my little contribution to the discussion, which I think has been quite enlightening and great to see the good insights coming from the discussion, is that, as you mentioned at the beginning, Ubong, that a lot has been done in the past, but mainly through collaboration. And you touched on the Maritime Security Initiative led by NIMASA, and how NIMASA worked with not just the national and regional stakeholders, but also the international stakeholders, the international maritime industry. Because for you to be able to gain trust and confidence and therefore support from the global community, you have to give them visibility on what you're doing. What are your vision? What are your goals? And how can we work together to support you in achieving that? And then you're able to demonstrate a track record of delivery. Then in that way, they start to build trust and confidence in what you say. Because nothing we say now that they've not had before. It's more about demonstrating that we can walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So on that note, I would like us to, as we progress in this initiative, which I think is a highly commendable one, and well done to you, Ubong. Let's think about how you collaborate internationally, how you engage internationally, how you partner. Because if you look at what other smaller countries in Africa, I say smaller because Nigeria is the largest, is the most populous country in Africa. But if you look at what they're doing, they're partnering smartly. It's about smart partnership, not about building partnerships all over the world. It's about being very strategic in who you work with and how you work with them. So just bear that in mind as you progress. Think about the broader community internationally and how you can work with them, how you can position yourself to be attractive as a potential partner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam, for that. Really appreciate the perspective you brought in. Clearly, we have to show some track record in terms of what we're doing. The whole world knows we've talked about this. We've been down this road several times. What are we doing? How do we make sure that people who have responsibility for getting certain things done get to do them across our various spheres of influence and impact? I think that is what needs to change. So thank you very much, Sam. Before I bring you in, I want to quickly run through developments. We call this Blue for You, Nigeria's maritime, marine, and blue economy sector. Just what has happened in the past 1 month. I'll run through it quickly. It will also serve as useful inspiration for your reflection, Prof, and also for feedback, or should I say contribution. Why is this very important? It will ensure that participants on the Code Blue conversation, on the Code Blue connection, are also aware of what is happening. We call it Blue for You, Nigeria's maritime, marine, and blue economy sector. Based on media reports, August 1st to August 22nd, there have been quite some development. This development and these insights or these activities will aid our conversation, subsequent ones, and keep our minds alert, alive, and engaged as far as how the sea affects all of us and how the blue economy is our collective destiny. So in terms of policy and governance, there is something from the ministry in terms of leadership, some news item there where they've announced plans to replicate the success of the Lekki deep sea port. Now, if you remember, that was part of the conversation we had on seaports. How many seaports do we need? Do we need to keep building these infrastructure? And if so, why can't we spread them? Why can't we spread them? We've heard someone talk about Badagry. Do we need to overladen Lagos with so much port infrastructure? How will that help? Ondo State has had plans in the pipeline to build a port. I remember a visit during my time in Nimasa to the governor, the then governor. What's happening to that? Bayelsa State, Age Deep Sea Port is there. My own state of Akwa Ibom is there with Ibaka Deep Sea Port. We don't know where that is headed. How do we extend all of this? That's there. Port modernization is in the news as well. How to enhance the capacity of our current port infrastructure. Then, of course, the KPIs that Mr. Temiso Omashaye talked about. I don't know whether they listened to part of what we said during our first Code Blue, and there was some conversations around that, but we need these conversations out there. Trade facilitation also in the news in terms of what the customs is doing. And remember, I talked about one of the key inclusion buckets in terms of education, engagement, and awareness at the Blue Economy Academy is what we call Blue Commerce. What is the customs doing in terms of the implementation of the unified customs management system that it has put in place? We might have a Code Blue event where we discuss efficiency with regards to trade and trade facilitation. Then we also have this, I'll be sharing, it's going to be available to everyone. We'll send it to you by email just to give you a sense of the summary of what's going on. And then it will also guide you, because we welcome participants on Code Blue to share topics that they feel we can discuss during subsequent Code Blue meetings and interactions. Safety, security, and the environment. I think Sam Megwa touched a bit on that. There's a lot. If there's any sector that demands safety, security, and consciousness over how the environment is treated, I think clearly the maritime sector leads in that regards. We've had recently the boat mishap in Sokoto, where over 40 people reportedly lost their lives or have remained missing. It goes to show us that more work needs to go into inland waterways, administration, into inland transportation and access to it. Something needs to be done there. Who are those that know people that have policy responsibility in NIWA? And also locally, most states have inland waterways authority. We should be reaching out to them. It doesn't have to be until we do things at the national level. Code Blue is designed to cascade these conversations further down, further out there, and galvanizing awareness for everyone to get involved, to ask these questions. Why should 40 people die at sea? Or why should 40 people die inside a body of water? Why? All because they were trying to make it from one location to the other. What is missing? Is it safety, education? What is missing? Is it adequate infrastructure? We need these conversations. And no one can do it alone. We must all collaborate. Maybe that's an entrepreneurial opportunity under Blue Ventures for people to explore the right kinds of people who have the entrepreneurial thinking to build the right kinds of boats that can ferry people across short distances over bodies of water within the country. So we've got to think broadly, blue sky thinking. As we see these problems, let's ask ourselves what kind of conversations we need to have. In terms of human capital development in the industry, yes, NIMASA recently promoted a good number of its staff. We pray that the promotions will reflect also in terms of the quality of performance. So let the promotions not just be entitlement. It's 4 years I've been on this position. It's time to promote me to the next one. That's entitlement thinking. Let it be performance-centric. And I read where the DG urged the staff to deliver greater value in terms of performance. We want to see that. There's also conversation about local fish production out there, and then this lecture given by the past DG of NIMASA, Dr. Adedosumo at NIPS. So these conversations are taking place everywhere. We need more of them, but beyond the conversations, we need the awareness to strengthen Nigerians more broadly and to galvanize action. And that's part of what Code Blue is contributing. And I hope that the media is taking note of it, because we've got to find ways of extrapolating these conversations into the lives, into the space, into the thinking of average Nigerians. In the end, it's about making this blue economy one for all. One for all. A tragic boat accident in Sokoto has an impact on our collective senses as Nigerians who care about the value of life. And part of our responsibility is to make the blue economy relatable to all Nigerians. Relatable to all Nigerians. And this conversation will continue to lead us in that direction. So just some tidbits for us to keep our minds stimulated, to strengthen our level of blue awareness. And with that done, I will yield the floor to Professor Pat Utomi. We all know Prof doesn't need any introduction. Prof, everybody knows you. So I'll leave the floor to you to carry on your own reflections with regards to the state of play against the backdrop of what we've shared so far. I know Mr. Temiso Omashaya is still here, and he probably might have one or two things to reflect. Prof, you will have about 20 minutes max, 15 to 20 minutes. And I know that's going to be a very difficult thing, keeping you to that time. We will do our best, and we'll trust you to do your best, because the people on the platform would like to ask questions and take things up from there. So, Prof, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you so very much, Ubong. It's a great pleasure to be able to join this wonderful initiative. And I'd like to say that I've read some interesting things already, even though technology kept me out for a good part of the conversations. Let me begin by saying that the blue economy is made to sound so novel. In many ways, it is not new. It's been with us forever. I mean, it's like saying Mungo Park discovered the Niger, where people have been living around for centuries or millennia. It was discovered by Mungo Park. It was not discovered by Mungo Park, of course. However, the blue economy has taken on new importance. Some of you may recall that in 2017, the CVL annual lecture was given by Professor Paul Collier. Professor Collier is one of the leading economists in the world, essentially one of the leading economists on Africa, has run the Center for African Economies at Oxford University for a good part of 30, 40 years. And in more recent times, Professor Collier has been emerging as one of the leading authorities on what is generally referred to as ocean-facing cities. I mean, the prospects and the possibilities for ocean-facing cities is definitely much different from cities that are not ocean-facing. And the whole area in economics has developed around that. And Professor Collier is one of the leading researchers in that area. Now, when he spoke in 2017 at that CVL annual lecture, he so excited the Lagos State governor, then Lagos State governor was sitting right there, Governor Ambode, that Governor Ambode asked if he could invite him back to give the 50th anniversary lecture of Lagos, which took place in May of that year. And Professor Collier graciously accepted the invitation and came for that. And so there are enormous prospects from a blue economy that we have not been utilizing in our country, very sadly. And the paradox of it is that even with all that opportunity looking us in the face, we're living in extreme poverty. Right now, as we speak, 75% of people who live in rural Nigeria live in extreme poverty. There are no jobs. There are Osita Ubu, Professor Ubu, I was speaking the other day here at the launch of his new book, and was making the point that in Nigeria today, there are many 40-year-olds who are university graduates who have not had a job, one job since they left university. And that at age 40, ordinarily, you should be making professor if you entered academia right after graduation. You should be a manager of some significance in some major company. And yet, many at 40 have not had their very first job and staying at home with their parents, having all kinds of problems. Whereas there is this vast possibility available through exploring the blue economy. Now, what are the constraints? What have been, let me just say, just focus on one or two. There are many constraints to development. Why has it not taken place and how will it take place? One clear constraint is that we don't have a clear strategy as a country. We really don't have a clear strategy. Regarding economic development generally, and particularly the blue economy, that's just become a new buzzword that policymakers are jumping around, but are not really doing enough to make it become a driver of economic growth, reduction of employment, and so on and so forth. So I really would like to see a more disciplined approach to economic development. And I give you a simple throw in from more recent research that I have been doing. I've been trying to essentially understand and explain why so many theories of economic development that have been around since the season of independence in 1960 have not managed to lead to rapid growth in Africa. And in analyzing them from the early Walt Rostow model on modernization to the more recent Newcomb models, Washington Consensus, and all of that, I found a major limitation in all of them. The latter, if you will, prescriptions do a lot about focusing on private sector-led development, and yet they don't have a theory of making markets work and stimulating entrepreneurship. Because in the end, it is private venturing that will make things really work. You can see how the Japanese did this very, very early in the day in the Japanese ascendance. An agency of government called MITI crystallized, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. One of the myths about MITI is that you couldn't tell where the private sector stopped and the public sector began, or vice versa. Japanese diplomats around the world would meticulously gather market information and pass it on to MITI, which provided it to Japanese businessmen, and literally the markets would be developed starting from the public sector, creating those markets for them, showing them where opportunities are, and then bringing in Japanese companies and making contacts for them in the countries where they were. Now, unfortunately for us, there is an unseemly problem with the nature of how the public service has evolved post-colonial in Nigeria, colonial era. And that is somehow a sense in which public service thinks of itself as the know-all, do-all. And there's also a poor culture in Nigeria that's evolved in which anybody who has authority is a bully. I mean, just look, whether it's airline flight attendant slapping a passenger, uniform is terrorism in Nigeria. Anybody who has authority is a bully. And that attitude has to change to lead to the collaboration that will lead to progress. So, regulatory risk has been the bane of development in many sectors of Nigerian economy. Just as I was joining, I heard somebody who called in from the Niger Delta telling stories and complaining about just that. Public servants need to be completely retrained to understand their role. First of all, as servants. Secondly, as partners. There's a sense in which public servants tend to talk down on the private sector. You know, like Ubong, I think, was alluding to say, everybody's coming to try and get something from us. Us, the government, is them. We want to come and get something. We want to get. Who are they? We will. That attitude is inadequate, inappropriate, and should not be how our country grows. One of the things MITI did in my studies, and I had the privilege of spending a little time at MITI back in 1998, one of the things he did in Japan, or for Japan, was that they really clearly saw the private sector as partners. The whole concept of Japan Incorporated came out of MITI, and that all of Japan is one big private company. Public side, private side, everybody working together to grow the Japanese economy. We need to come to that sense. If we come to that sense, that culture of how we solve problems, then the next thing is, what is the specific strategy? How do we deliver superior performance over those who are competing with us? We must see that through and look at the collaborations that would eliminate dysfunctions that get in the way of this. I tried to start an initiative years ago by holding a maritime sector monthly breakfast meeting. It used to hold at the Federal Palace Hotel, which stakeholders, public, private, were supposed to all come. And the idea was that in quiet breakfast, a few of the issues that challenge the system in the months before will be presented by a research economist And then people can quietly discuss, look, how do we eliminate this? Customs will say, okay, this was a problem. Let's behave this way. The drug law people will say, okay, let's do this. However, these myriad of agencies are in the ports that used to be able to keep your containers in the port forever, and demurrage, mountain, and so on and so forth. Those kinds of issues that can be dealt with better where there is a clear strategy of how we want to win in this sector. There's so many ways we can win. There's no one way. And we need to be able to sit down as a country and determine which particular way we think is best to win in the maritime, so that the blue economy can add the value it should add. But one of the really interesting things for me at this time, particularly as the Africa Free Trade Area is declared largest free trade area in the world, actually, if we can do what we should do and learn lessons from others, is that we can profit enormously, given our different factor endowments, from what essentially should be aggregating across borders. You see, there are many things that can be in one product that require a component that is better produced in Ghana than in Nigeria or Togo, and some that are better produced in Nigeria, and then coupling them together and exporting them to the world. I mean, people, when you wear these fancy suits, shoes, belts produced by Versace, you think Versace is one great producing machine that's somewhere putting them together. No. Versace is just a middleman, really. It designs these items, sets standards, and goes to so many small Italian families that have small factories making those things. And all of them produce to the same standard. Then they pull them together and they have a huge inventory that they can take into the UK or the US. In many ways, aggregating across borders would really be one of the things that the blue economy can do with AFTA that will boost Africa's place in world trade. In many cases, our markets, our production is far too small to penetrate major markets. If Walmart is going to order blue jeans, 10,000 pieces produced in some factory in Lagos will not meet they won't even pay attention because it's disrupting of their processes. But if 20 factories in West Africa are producing the same standard and somebody here aggregates them and they are shipped from the port of Calabar or Lagos or Ondo when those ports are ready. And by the way, one of the big problems I have is that we tend to play politics with everything. We need to have a port in as many parts of our country. It's a very long coastline. And just developing adjacent markets is good for everybody. This business of cornering everything to come to Apapa Port create congestions and problems. It's just bad politics. It doesn't make sense. But we're used to playing bad politics in Nigeria. So if we can focus on production, on economic growth, we will see that we can definitely travel much, much further with that. So we do need to find ways of creating companies, private companies that become behemoths like Marubeni. We can even go into partnerships with companies like Marubeni to set up such companies. And those companies will help us aggregate across borders. And the maritime, clearly, and that's part of why the cabotage efforts were put in place, moving these things from the ports in Tema, in wherever in West Africa, aggregate them in one place. You know, I felt such personal pain when 2 years ago I went to Tangier Med, the port in Tangiers in Morocco. In fact, I probably will be back there in the next 2 weeks. And to just see what was going on there. Inside the port, cars were being assembled from Europe and shipped out to different parts of Africa and all of those. This is what makes the blue economy such, because essentially it makes exchange cheaper. The ocean-facing city can move stuff like is being moved from Europe into the port of in Tangiers in Morocco. Things are put together there, and the nature of the transportation into the African hinterland is easier, creating enormous efficiencies that profit all the stakeholders. I think that it's important for us to do that. I think that the flora and fauna of the ocean provide incredible opportunities that we need to attract new entrepreneurs into and create a regulatory frame that allows for safety, that allows for greater efficiencies, and delivers in terms of the more jobs being created. I know that I'm not supposed to speak for too long, so I'm going to try and begin to wrap up here by saying that another very important part of what the blue economy offers is, what people gain from tourism. Small countries with 50 miles of waterway, make literally billions of dollars from tourism. And Nigeria has this long, nearly 900 miles of whatever of ocean-facing beaches and all of that, and we can't seem to make anything of it. That's a tragedy, really big tragedy. And so we need a plan. We need to bring in private sector people, encourage them, take parts of those value chains, and create all these jobs. Nigeria should not be a poor country. Just the blue economy is enough to take care of all of Nigeria, end to end, in terms of quality jobs, in terms of revenues, and so on. I don't want to get into the hydrocarbons, value chains, and all of those, but many of you who have heard me lately have seen how good I feel that the shells of this world are living onshore, ExxonMobil's and co. Because really, truly, it's going to transform the Nigerian economy if we create the quality human capital that can drive an indigenous oil company. The multinationals are not good or bad people, but their goal is the energy security of their country. But when your people are indigenous entrepreneurs, the knock-on effect of that economy will not be an enclave economy. It will be one that grows the hinterland. If you look at the things we could do with gas, look at what the Qataris have done. And countries like Oman don't have anywhere near our endowments in hydrocarbons. Look at where they are. Look at the investments pouring in there. But because policymakers behave like bullies in Nigeria, because there is unreliability, and we keep, pushing back, change of government, get change of this, get change of that, and of course corruption, we end up being big losers. But that's penny wise, pound foolish. We could do things right, and all of us grow, and our economy grow, and our respect as a people grow. So let me, wind up the main direct presentation on that, and I know that we can get into conversations that will bring out more and more of what should be done, or the possibilities of the blue economy. So, Ubong, over back to you.
Wow. Well, thank you, Prof. That's I'll call that a compressed masterclass on the blue economy. I can see Malam Usman applauding. I think, Prof, you deserve an applause for that. This is the first time we've managed to get you to stick to time. Thank you very much, Prof. We know we'll have more opportunities for you to speak to this subject matter. So we're going to open the floor now for those who might have one or two questions or contributions. But I think what you've said that is most instructive for the audience that we have on this call at the moment is the fact that the blue economy is enough to take care of Nigeria without anything else. It's more than enough to take care of Nigeria without anything else, end to end. And I want to quote you verbatim on that, end to end, given the massive coastline that we have. And painfully, I can just imagine taking an aerial view of our coastline. I think one would just have to just shake their head in sadness and feel the pain just doing that helicopter ride from, let's say, Lagos across all around through to Cross River, because you would just find absolute waste of possibilities and then keep wondering why we are where we are in terms of our poverty status as a nation when we have the natural endowments to make us fare better. So I think that, for me, is the kernel of your presentation, and the communique will, of course, reflect on the other areas. I have Samuel Joseph. Samuel Joseph, please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Samuel Joseph. I'm a facility manager.
Okay, go ahead.
Please, sir, can
Yes, you have 1 minute. Go ahead and make your contribution or your question. Ask your question. Go on.
Manager. Okay, so please, I want to ask a question in the area of role of engagement between the rural community, where sometimes could be an oil servicing company or exploration company coming into a particular rural community to take up some kind of explorations within the community without a proper engagement with the rural people. So I want to know what should be the actual role of engagement that will enable the prosperity of the local people, regardless of their educational background, such that they will be able to benefit equitably from the operation of those companies in their land. For example, you have a company comes in, acquire expanse of land belonging to the community, which is going to shortchange the economic progress of the community at the long run. And then at the end of the day, there is no road, there is no electricity, there is no water, even their aquatic environments are corrupt as a result of the operations of the companies and all of that. What should be the role of engagement in the blue economy that will also that will ensure the prosperity of the people, whether they are connected with oil business or not? But for the fact that these activities are taking place in their land,
yeah, sure. Your point is made. Sorry, Ubang, am I supposed to respond?
Yes, Prof. You're supposed to respond.
Okay, yeah, I think your point is made. First of all, there is the so-called famous law that took 20-something or 30-something years to go through National Assembly. The what do they call this thing again? Oh boy, my brain. What's this? That National Assembly kept pushing back and forth from assembly to assembly. Finally passed one a few years ago and started trying to amend it 2 days after they passed it. Anyway, that petroleum profit PPA, whatever they call it. So that exists, but it's a guide. Any clever business person that is going into a community will know that the will thrive more if from the very beginning, as part of their general strategy, they include the community in their thinking. The Petroleum Industry Act, which is the Petroleum Industry Bill or whatever, does specify some things. But you can even do far more without you spending the money there if you have a good strategy. A community will feel ownership of the enterprise. Yes, giving them shares is not a big problem. In fact, they will protect and defend you because they know that revenue is coming from there is coming to them as a community and all of that. So it's just clever business. It's nothing. It's not rocket science. The only problem was that some of the early multinationals relying on government did not play it in the right way. They gave scholarships. They did all kinds of things. They gave money to the elite of the communities who went and spent the money in London and Lagos, and it didn't affect the community. Anyway, I can go on and on because many years ago, Shell wanted me to study a program they had in the UK, South Africa, everywhere called, I think they eventually brought it to Nigeria, but encouraging entrepreneurship in communities, supporting entrepreneurs, even countries where they were not producing. What do they call it? Something wire, you can plan all of those things in from beginning. That's not something that just simple wisdom suggests.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof. I would. I have Tekede Yala raising his hand. I'll come to you. Just hold on. I would want you to reflect a little bit differently, Prof, in terms of the blue economy. I think that we've had this traditional view of you have a riverine community or any community adjacent to the waters, and possibly as a community with access to deposits of some form of mineral resource, maybe it's hydrocarbon or what have you. And then you have multinationals who would have to plow through that community in order to access or mine those resources. And the traditional view is that, okay, they've come and they have to compensate us, provide for us, and all of that. Isn't there some entrepreneurial thinking that should come in on the part of the owners or the occupants, residents of those communities, in terms of how they can also make some use or create some value economically as it relates to the blue economy, their own immediate environment? Why must it be that it's this template of Shell has come in, so everything rises and falls on Shell, for instance, now, or this multinational, whether it behaves rightly or not, and then we all start the agitation, we go back and forth, now we have a PIB. Where is that sense of initiative, that sense of entrepreneurial spark, for instance, to actually create value? Shouldn't that be part of the conversation that we also have if we are to harness this blue economy? Prof,
Yeah.
Of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Surely that's what I was trying to refer to when I was talking about the Shell program. I'm trying to remember exactly something wire they call it, because about 25 years ago, Shell came to me to look at it, and I was shocked that they were doing it in South Africa, doing it of course, in the UK, but Nigeria, where they were very active, they were not doing it. It's essentially training entrepreneurs, then developing ventures within the area that improves the general ecosystem, improves the quality of life of the people. And many of those people are indigenous entrepreneurs from that place that will see the interconnectedness and their own prosperity and happiness. But also importantly, one of the big mistakes that I see what happened in Nigeria. If you go to Australia, most of the public infrastructure was provided by mining companies. To get to their mines, they built the railroads. Eventually, those railroads got converted to public railroads. But here, the strategy did not do that. If Shell was building the East-West Highway It would have been a world-class highway 20 years or 30 years ago. But the federal government has played all this GBT and were you around that road for how long? It's still not functional. And this it shows that they are not good at doing those kinds of things. But the strategy that we adopted here, so completely different from the Australian model, has not served us well. But yes, entrepreneurship in the community is a critical part of how you get the benefits in a sustainable way. Because all these handouts, one day that well is dry, shell goes, and that's it. Sustainability. I mean, again, like I said, too many stories I can tell because I was when the current to be of Onitsha was a executive director at Shell, responsible for government and whatever relations. I remember coming. He was living very close to me. I was living on Glover Road in Ikoyi. Then he was living on Cooper, and I came into his house one day. He had just arrived from Port Harcourt, very unhappy, and he was talking about how much money they were spending on these Ugoni chiefs, and the monies were not even being reflected in Ugoni land. Thing was all going out. This was long before, a couple of years before the Kensarehua thing. And I told him that day, I said, look, this thing is going to blow up on your faces. Lo and behold, a couple of short years later, we had the Kensarehua hanging, and the effect it's had on Shell's reputation worldwide. So anyhow, I think that being sensitive to sustainable economic well-being of the community, which can be even cheaper than all this giving out money to these chiefs, is a good part of strategy.
Thank you, Prof. I think that makes the case for advocacy around blue ventures. And such blue ventures could be enterprises such as building crafts locally and building them to very high safety standards, where you could get agencies like NIMASA coming to at least entrench that safety philosophy, because it's going to be activities.
I mean, look at what they do in Sri Lanka. All of those coastal areas can be like Sri Lanka, you know, and do it much better. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Prof, for that. I have Tekena Iyala. You have 1 minute for your contribution or question, depending. Then after, we can take a Jeff Ukachuku. 1 minute each, please. We've lost Tekena.
Sorry, no, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. After your question, I will read some of the comments that have been dropped so far. We have quite a number of them. We'll read that. All right, go on.
Good morning, Mr. Essen. Good morning, my very amiable Prof.
Good morning.
It's very difficult to ask a question because I really cannot fit into your shoe. It's very big. I don't even know where to start. I just want to make some comments, Prof. My comments is taking me back to the beginning of this blue economy thing. I am from River State, precisely Port Harcourt. I was born in Oputa, so we live around the coastal area. We live inside the water. We live outside the water. We know what we have benefited from living around that area. Ignorantly, we really don't know exactly what it's called, but we know that our fathers and forefathers, they make a living, train us from that particular activities called blue economy. Now, I want to take something from what you said, sir. The policymakers, Prof, they are not being fair and they are not proactive enough to implement the gains of this blue economy. Because for me, I still feel that they don't really understand what this blue economy is all about. It's easier to compare us to developed countries like Australia, Singapore, and others. But we really don't want to do what they are doing to actually activate the gains of this blue economy. Now, let's relate this to what is happening with the other foreign companies, the oil companies who came here in the name of making our economy better and also exploit us to report that even around the Niger Delta axis, it's very difficult for you to gain any meaningful activities called blue economy because our seas are dead, our fish are dead, everything around us is dead. And because of that, somehow they know how to use that policy called divide and rule. And they put us in that point where we begin to fight against ourselves. So I'm so worried about our policymakers, about our leaders. Like you said, every leader, every man who has authority becomes a bully. And that is what exactly we are facing now. For us to get this a new initiative that can give us a headway of this for economy, I think there's a need for us generally to overview the policymakers in this country. Let us exactly know what we are doing. Now, the president has done a lot by stationing a particular ministry and christening it over the blue economy. Great, great policy on ground. But the implementation, sir, is the issue, is the problem. The implementation is not there. I can assure you that if you go around the Niger Delta states, barely, maybe from if I start to be corrected. For now, I don't know, for now, only Bayelsa State has somehow domesticated this blue economy policy into their scheme of work. They have a ministry, the Ministry of Blue Economy. Right. But it's up there, the policies are there, the implementation is the issue. The implementation is what we are facing. So, Prof, you should help us to highlight some of the few things we can do in terms of real implementation of this blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tekena. I think that it's a very important point about implementation. We talked about that last month during the inaugural version. I believe that Mr. Marshall might want to weigh in. I know Prof will also want to weigh in on this. Implementation is very key. But let me just highlight something from what you've said, which I think is so crucial. And I'm going to say this out of the experience of having worked in the sector. I believe that the littoral states, those 8 littoral states, Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, Delta, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Cross River, Bayelsa, those 8 littoral states are the actual front lines for the actualization of Nigeria's blue economy. And if each of those other states could even do 10% of what Lagos and its ports, if they could replicate just 10% of that, let us just imagine what would happen. So that's one of the things that I discovered in those 3 years working in NIMASA, interacting, interfacing, and then engaging, that without the littoral states and the governors showing some commitment with some consistency in very simple ways that can galvanize even SMEs along those coastal states, we may be waiting for too long for the federal government to do that heavy lifting. Now that's as well who had the front row seats when we started drafting the initial concept paper formally at NIMASA that led to the establishment of the expanded committee at the federal level. That was one of the things that we discovered. But then I'll come back to you, Prof, and maybe Mr. Omashe, then we'll take Jeff and we'll begin to round off from there. I don't know, Prof, if you have any response to that. I don't know if Mr. Omashe or any other person has any response. Then we'll take Jeff. I see his hand raised there. I'm not sure. I think Professor Tomi has...
Yeah, no, I'm trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point, even though typically I'm very critical of the perspective that the problem is implementation, because a good policy anticipates the problems of implementation. So if the policy itself were good, all the problems would have been taken care of as it's being implemented. However, there is a clear challenge of commitment and will, especially part of state governments, and that you pointed to. Many years ago, I was invited to give a keynote at a forget jobs summit by the River State government. The chairman of the occasion was Jerry Rawlings. There was another professor from University of Port Harcourt who was, I guess, the discussant who was sitting by me on the high table. So when I came back after speaking, I mean, one of the things I suggested, for example, is we have all these graduates who are 5, 6, 7, 8 years, no jobs. They may have studied sociology, history, whatever. But you know their minds are open because of that education. But they don't have any real skills. That if we created an executive skills development program where those sociology graduates, whatever degrees they have, can in 9 months or 6 months learn the finest art of plumbing, underwater painting, whatever. And then they be encouraged with grants to set up gangs, businesses that solve those problems that are acutely, desperately needed. First of all, we'll create jobs furiously. We'll provide skills that will lead to further entrepreneurial initiatives and on and on. And, you know, I remember coming back and Jerry Rawlings was just besides himself with excitement about some of the things that I said. And the professor of University of Port Harcourt linked to me and said that while I was speaking, the governor was saying, this man, to talk grammar, Jerry, the only business in town is politics. That's where people make money. It was very frustrating and annoying, but it just shows the mindset that sometimes many people in public life in Nigeria can bring to these things. I remember there was a gentleman from Shell. He later ran that agency who was there. Shegun or somebody, I don't remember his name, you know. But there are many problems like that because public life in Nigeria has not quite evolved to where people who have a heart of service enter public life essentially to change people's lives. It's just a tangential part of their chase for personal glory and power. And that's what really the problem is many times with these things. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. So I'll take, I don't know if Mr. Omashe is still, if he's still there, if he wants to weigh in. If not, I can take, okay, he's
Well,
there.
very quickly.
Okay.
Okay, very quickly. Thank you very much, Prof, and everybody else. It's been very enlightening, what has been said today. I would always say this, Nigeria does not lack policies. What Nigeria lacks is the personnel to drive these policies. And truth be told, I'm speaking truth to power, Nigeria has put the wrong people in the wrong positions, irrespective of whatever you think, whether it's a minister, whether it's MDA, whether it's whatever the case may be. If Nigeria has started implementing the first rolling plan from how it was formulated, we will not. If we had implemented Vision 2020, based on what was done, I mean, we have some of the best policies, I must say, written in books. I think maybe the Nigeria is a perfect example of if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. I think that is the perfect, Nigeria has become the perfect example of that. Reason quite simply is that you need to put square pegs in square holes, okay? And if you do not want to do that, and I go back to my old statement, which says you need to have a strategy, okay? We develop policies, we don't develop strategies, and if you develop the strategies, you put KPIs. Now, why do we have so many white elephant projects in Nigeria? Because a new guy comes in and he wants to shine or wants to make money due to corruption or whatever else. He abandons what the other guy does and whatever. But why do you have success? Well, okay, why is Lagos successful? I mean, be that as it may, Lagos has continuity. Why is Akwa Ibom successful? Akwa Ibom has continuity. I mean, if you look at the states that have continuity, irrespective of the political heads there, you find that it's a question of continuity. But as a country, Nigeria, there's no continuity. That is the problem we have. And we put the wrong people in the wrong places and without giving them clear-cut targets on how to meet these targets. So what we need, like I said, it still goes back to the issue of manpower development, training. I am not one for, I don't believe anymore. I love university degrees as much as that may be. But the world has gone to certification, professional certification. You need to be certified, irrespective of your degree is good. And look, right now, I believe that, and I'll say this loud and clear, that we need to begin to identify skill sets from our nursery school and primary schools, and rather than pushing them into universities, let's begin to develop them in the technical colleges and begin to give them pure certification, just like what Prof was saying. Come out of university. Your university degree doesn't get you far unless you have a skill. And how do you get that skill? By getting certified. Go and apply for a job right now in the UK, US, and whatever. What do they ask you for? What certified skills do you have? And there's need for us to begin to do an indigenous certification skill program in Nigeria. A certified skill doesn't have to be in English. It can be in Igbo. It can be in Yoruba. I mean, they do it in French. They do it in Russian. And we still accept those certificates. So why can't we internationalize some of our certification program here and develop indigenous certification program? We don't have to depend on the West anymore. Look, something clear is happening in the world right now. The Western world is going down, be it America or be it Europe, and the places going up is the East Asian country, African countries, or would I say the BRICS countries. They are the future of the world. And we need to develop our own manpower to take over that area. That is my own take on this. And that is why I think I can just add my own pound of flesh to this. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Quickly, let's take Jeff Ukachukwu. You have 1 minute, then we'll wrap up today's or this month's edition of Code Blue, and we'll announce the communique will be out by tomorrow. Everyone will get a copy of this. Please ensure we have your emails, and if possible, if you can share you can drop your mobile phone numbers, especially for WhatsApp. That will also make it a lot easier so you get it both ways. All right, Jeff, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prof, and thank you to all participants. I think there is a problem of culture in Nigeria. I think having done things outside Nigeria, that stems from a culture of reaction. We're a reactionary country. Prof brought out a very important point, that if you create a strategy and you say the problem is implementation, it means you didn't create a very proper strategy. A strategy should, in all essence, talk about the policy, but also look at the implementation, look at the bottlenecks to implementation, and make provisions for all of those, so that at the end of the day, a good strategy should work. If it doesn't work, whatever that problem is implementation should have been anticipated in the strategy point. So we're talking about blue economy. Do we have a meta strategy? You're talking about issues of people getting employment in the local communities and all those things. These things should have been anticipated and properly mapped out. Institutions to run these things should be very capable of running it. In terms of all of these things, market is driven by profit. Wherever there is clear profit, money will go into it. And whose job is it to enable the market to show this evidence of where profit is? It's the government, it's institutions. Prof gave the example of what happened in Japan. And until Nigeria understand that we have to have a clear strategy that works, we have to have institutions that will create the enabling environment and create the environment for the market, show clearly how the market will work, point out where these businesses opportunities are for the private sector to work, a system that marries both the public and the private sector together on equal par with equal capacity. The Western world works because people in the private sector are not clearly too smarter than people in the public sector. They work hand in hand. And until we have that happening, some of the things we are trying to solve will not be solved. And also, we're talking about blue economy. Blue economy is still an elitist thing. Prof mentioned that it has been there forever. The local man in his village that fishes understands blue economy in his own language. How are we making them a part and parcel? Is this blue economy thing coming from under? Is it a bottom-up? Are we using bottom-up approach? and also sometimes top-bottom approach, marry them, or are we just using one approach? So we need to go back and look at what we are doing and look at what other people have done and try to adjust them to fit into our own system and make it work. We should not react. The shell didn't work because Shell didn't put the communities into consideration. It's only they reacted to what the communities are doing. So it wouldn't work. So we need to go back, plan. We have the opportunity to sit down and get people. A lot of smart brains are here and are talking. They know, they understand this. We can sit down and plan and make this thing work. If we rush into it, it's going to feel like most other things have failed. And we also need to look at what worked. How can we replicate that? How can we use the knowledge of what worked to bolster our efficiency in all other aspects? So for me, I still think we need to go back to the drawing board and be clear what this structure of blue economy is, communicate it to everybody, let everybody understand, map out where the opportunities are, make sure where the public sector should come in. We have to be very clear what we're doing if we want to succeed.
Well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jeff. Really appreciate that passionate contribution. So I think this is where we begin to drop anchor, as we say in maritime. I want to thank everyone for participating, for showing up and making this a true blue market square, if I may put it that way, where we have eggheads lead us in conversations, and then we have normal human beings like yourself and myself. I always tell people that, look, I didn't choose maritime. Maritime chose me. I was just minding my business, teaching here at the School of Eloquence before I was railroaded into maritime. And Professor Patu told me is one of those who pushed me as well into it as far back as 1998, inviting me to seminars and retreats to give speeches. And here I am. I have now become a very interested party in this, having worked for 3 years with the Maritime Administration. So the sea affects all of us. That is my own premise in all of this. And that is what inspires and motivates me, that the sea affects all of us and that the blue economy is a collective destiny. And so from that philosophical standpoint, the Blue Economy Academy will make its own contributions through regular meets like these and a host of other initiatives. And to answer the question that was raised, how is the blue economy going to help in this regard? We are looking at executing an ocean literacy program. We're still ironing out the details in terms of how far that can go and who we're going to enlist. We're already in talks with the NYSC and looking at ways to see how we come up with a program that works practically so that policy and people can converge. Because I think that is where the gap lies. When people become sufficiently aware about a particular sector and they have that understanding at their level, they can speak its language at their level enough to let those driving policy take note that, you know what, we may be speaking the big grammar and we have all the vocabulary, writing the policies, but the people know about what this ought to be. And so they can hold us accountable, they can weigh in, they can make meaningful contributions. And I think that is sort of how the Blue Economy Academy is seeking to position itself towards that mission of seeing a Nigeria that prospers by water as we strive to eliminate sea blindness. So I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Professor Patutomi, my mentor, my boss. Thank you, my big brother, Mr. Temisa Omasheye, for always being there. Thank you, Lami Tumaka, Russell Pegg. I know you've been listening quietly, and I know the role that you and your group played in contributing to what we enjoyed today in terms of the sanity and the reduction in insecurities in our waters, alongside with the MASA and that collaboration. Thank you, Sam. I know your responsibility, your contributions as well. Everyone that has been on this platform, too numerous to mention, my old Employers, NIMASA, still my constituency. I see a lot of you. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for joining. And of course, my friends, my non-maritime friends and associates who have invited to be part of this. I see Igo Orienru, a couple of you, too numerous to mention. I want to thank you for coming, and please spread the word. The sea affects us all. It affects us all. We have no business, to quote Professor Patu Tomi, end to end, the blue economy is enough to take care of Nigeria and Nigerians. Now, we have to be part of that conversation as best as we can and think of how we can create businesses there. I say Kaito Umo, who is in charge of IBOM, Leadership Development Academy, you've got to bring in blue economy consciousness into your programs. Back there in Akwa Ibom State, we have all of these resources. We've got to do something by whichever way, means, shape, or form. We've got to engage. The sea is a discontinuous phenomenon. Something drops in water, it doesn't fall right directly where you think it ends. It moves. We all must get involved, whichever way we can. So I want to say thank you very much as we call this a wrap.